With Daemon X Machina coming out for the Nintendo Switch, it's almost as if third-person mech games are trying to open the door to the gaming public so that they can carve out a niche for themselves. While Zone of the Enders is a franchise with a degree of cultural cash from its heyday, let's not forget the demand and love for Metal Wolf Chaos. Originally a mech game that released only for Xbox in Japan, it became a cultural fixation in the world of video game memes due to its cheesy voice acting and hot-blooded absurdity. And such was the accumulation of demand and favorable circumstances that Devolver Digital would localize a remastered version of Metal Wolf Chaos XD, for worldwide release earlier in August of 2019, years after Devolver Digital had stated an interest in localizing the game. Incidentally, the Armored Core franchise is a series of mech games that's made in Japan by From Software, a name that you may know for working on the Soulsborne games, along with recently released Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, but also the name responsible for making Metal Wolf Chaos. Armored Core, for those unaware, is one of From Software's most popular franchises, and far and away the most prolific of the franchises in their stable. The Armored Core franchises feature mechs called Armored Cores, wherein the player, as the pilot, must achieve mission objectives, such as defending a target or annihilating a wave of enemies. Mission completion earns the player money, with deductions sometimes being made based on how much ammo is used or the amount of damage taken. A notable thing about Armored Core games is the heavy emphasis placed on customization. Per each title, many parts of the Armored Core being piloted can be changed to create and build a different configuration of stats, such as AP or health, defense, weight and weight capacity, energy capacity, boost energy recharge rate, and energy output draining rate, along with some mechanics specific to certain games such as Heat and Primal Armor. All of these parts are shopped for with money earned from accomplishing mission objectives. The franchise's life thus far extends to 2013, but it all began with the first Armored Core releasing in 1997 for the first PlayStation. Interestingly, for the duration of the franchise's active lifespan, a new game was released nearly once a year. As for the first Armored Core, the story is that much of the Earth's population was wiped out after a war called the Great Destruction, and following that, corporations filled the power void of governments, and the rivalry of two major corporations is key to the world of the first Armored Core. The mechs were designed by Shoji Kawamori, known for working on the Macross series and a variety of other anime franchises, including Eureka 7. It released to modestly positive reception, generally regarded as a solid game despite being visually bland. Next up was Armored Core Project Fantasma, following directly after the first game and releasing for the PSX. A pilot for the mercenary group Raven receives a mission request with a massive reward, but delivered through unconventional means and with vague instructions. If players have saved data from the previous Armored Core game, parts of that first game can be carried over to Project Fantasma, including items that otherwise would be unavailable within Project Fantasma itself. It was also the first Armored Core game to introduce an arena mode, wherein players fight against other mechs for money. The third Armored Core game, Armored Core Master of Arena, released in 1999 for the PSX and took the arena introduced in Project Fantasma and made it essential to progressing through the game, along with progressing through standard missions as part of the scenario campaign. As with Project Fantasma, Master of Arena allowed players to carry over parts from the first two Armored Core games if their memory card has saved data from the game on it. Master of Arena was the first game to feature two discs, the first containing the main scenario campaign and the second containing the EX Arena, which was comprised of several different arena types and challenges, wherein you must be equipped with the corresponding leg part to participate. The franchise would make its transition to the PlayStation 2 with Armored Core 2 in 2000, which was part of the launch lineup for the North American release of the PS2. Where the first three games iterated on the same graphical engine, the transition to PS2 for the franchise necessitated a graphical overhaul, and with it, a change in story that saw one amongst three major corporations undertaking terraforming efforts on the planet Mars. But later events see the corporation Zeomatrix clashing with the elite military force for a power clash that sets innocent humans on Mars in the crossfire. Armored Core 2 is notable for introducing new mechanics and parts, with Armored Cores moving more slowly but also having the ability to overboost. Next in the series is Armored Core 2, Another Age, a direct follow-up to the events of the previous game. Following the thwarted coup from Armored Core 2, the government of Earth and corporations involved in terraforming and settling Mars begin to amass power once again, with the Earth government wanting stability and control over Mars, and the corporations seeking power. The tensions are escalated to increase in military power, and the citizens of Mars grow discontented, prompting them to resort to armed revolt. That being said, Another Age was notable for having a comparatively sparse plot, even though it had a huge amount of missions for an Armored Core game, 103 to be exact, the highest number of missions for an Armored Core game at that time. After Another Age is another continuity of Armored Core games, starting with Armored Core 3, released on the PlayStation 2. The surface of the Earth had been ruined, and so the surviving human populace lives underneath the surface in Layered, an underground world, with the city run by advanced AIs and three major corporations vying for influence and control over the limited resources in Layered. The highest level of administration is an AI called the Controller, itself countered by a group called Union, With strange occurrences happening more frequently in Layered, it would seem that something in the operation of the AIs is amiss. Notably, this game was also released on PSP as Armored Core 3 Portable, which included some new parts and a new arena opponent. Armored Core 3 also introduced new mechanics, including the ability to detach weapons at will so as to boost speed and energy recovery. Consorts, or allies, can now accompany you in missions, with players given the option to hire these consorts for missions if they so choose. Following Armored Core 3 is Silent Line Armored Core, which continues from the plot of Armored Core 3. The ending of that game saw Layered destroyed, and humanity moving to repopulate the surface of the Earth. As humanity scouts for habitable land across the globe, they learn of the Silent Line, an imaginary boundary of sorts that, when passed, communications with any traversing agent fails, and that person never returns. Sure enough, it becomes your job as the player to learn the truth of the Silent Line. As with Armored Core 3, this game was also ported to the PSP. New features introduced in this game included clone weapons, which are variations of existing weaponry with slightly adjusted stats, such as weight or ammo capacity. Silent Line would also receive a direct sequel in Armored Core Nexus. Following the events of Silent Line, leading corporations were once again vying for power and warring with one another. The introduction of a new corporation with control over access to a special resource has only heightened the tensions between the warring corporations. Raven pilots are being contracted with these corporations, and so the classic battle for influence in Armored Core games continues. While following the story of the Silent Line, its gameplay mechanics were significantly changed from the previous game, and so parts and game data from other games were not transferable. Nexus was also host to 2 discs, with the first containing the scenario campaign, and the second containing 40 missions from previous Armored Core games repurposed for Nexus's gameplay engine. The next title to discuss was Armored Core Formula Front for the PSP, and later for the PS2, but only in Japan, though the PSP version was released worldwide. The concept of this game was much different compared to traditional Armored Core games. Formula Front is the name of a circuit of mecha competition battles that take place in arenas, featuring unpiloted armored cores and competing teams, and Formula Front is a sensational frenzy that attracts the attention of the world. These armored cores are designed by architects, the role that you will take as the player. Armored Core Ninebreaker follows Formula Front, though releasing only for the PS2. The world of Ninebreaker is not one that features the Formula Front competitions or the constant state of warring corporations at one another's necks. Strangely, the world is at a relative state of peace, with aggressive incidents much less frequent than they've been in the past. While the citizenship enjoys the peace, one organization disapproves of this calm, worrying that it will lead to complacency and an inability to fight, and so they devise training programs to enhance the skills of the Ravens to keep them sharp. That's the story of the game, and there are no story missions. There is no shop system or money. There are only a variety of training missions here, per the concept of the game. And after these titles featuring relative peace, the stakes are raised once again in Armored Core Last Raven. The major corporations introduced in Armored Core 3 consolidate into one group, calling themselves the Alliance, and targeting other Ravens not in their employ. Directly opposing the Alliance are the Vertex Group, a coalition of Ravens, and separate from either faction are independent Ravens called Warlords. Last Raven features 6 endings based on the player's choices and group affiliation, a first for the franchise. Taking missions starts a 24-hour countdown timer, at the end of which the Vertex Group plans to launch an all-out war with the Alliance. The next major title for the Armored Core games also marked the debut for the franchise on the PS3, and also a move to the Xbox 360. Armored Core 4 was also meant to be a reboot, following the rather long list of games within the Armored Core 3 series that told a story concluding with Last Raven. World governments are no more, all territories are controlled and organized by corporations, and with their power set, they begin to war with each other. Meanwhile, the citizens living under their rule live in oppression. Notably, the game features online play and allows players to customize their Armored Core builds, test them, and also to view other Armored Core designs in the game's schematics mode. Directly following 4 was Armored Core For Answer, taking place 10 years after the events of the previous game. This game features 3 endings depending on which faction the player chooses to align with. In this game, the planet's surface is uninhabitable, and so the corporations from Armored Core 4 join together to form the League, and they work to build a habitable space for a select portion of the populace, angering many who were not so fortunate. A group of pilots called Orca pit themselves against the corporations, rebuking their classism. It's notable here that online play had returned for this game, along with a cooperative option. Well, historically, the franchise had previously been releasing yearly titles. It would be a few more years before the release of the next Armored Core game, Armored Core 5, in 2012, for the PS3 and Xbox 360. The player traverses a post-apocalyptic world wherein a man named Father and an organization called the Corporation are pitted against the Resistance, fighting against the tyranny of Father. There are 10 story missions in the game, along with 83 order missions that take place after the events of the main story. The game was designed to emphasize tactical play and stealth rather than action, a stark and interesting change for the series. There was also more emphasis on working as a team rather than just acting solo. And the last major Armored Core that we're going to discuss is Armored Core Verdict Day, released for PS3 and 360 worldwide in 2013. Taking place 100 years after Armored Core 5, humans move to resettle more parts of the planet. Meanwhile, as usual, three factions, the Sirius Corporation, Vanid, and the Evergreen family, all war with each other, with their conflict escalated by the discovery of troves of weapons and ancient technology found in towers. Additionally, other factions in the Foundation and the Reaper Squad evolved to be the main antagonists of the game. With mercenaries being pressured to take sides and towers an object of pursuit, the world was plunged into the Verdict War. Aside from that last title, Armored Core has 5 mobile phone games to its name, though they released only in Japan. For once, a prolific franchise, Armored Core now sleeps soundly and has done so for several years. When Hidetaka Miyazaki teased From Software's gaming project plan, Armored Core was one such possibility that at least wasn't ruled out. It's worth noting that key personnel who worked on Armored Core have left From Software. For example, Kenichiro Tsukuda, who was working on September 2019's Daemon X Machina, as mentioned at the beginning of the video. In an interview with Destructoid, From Software producer Masanori Takeuchi mused on what a new Armored Core game might look like. He emphasized the need for worldwide appeal, a game that would appeal to Europeans and Americans. The mecha genre, and Armored Core in particular, are notably inspired by robot anime, but to Takeuchi, it's important that while using that as a base, wide appeal, particularly for Western audiences, is an essential concern. Interestingly, the interview touched on the concept of fusing dark fantasy featured in Souls games in the Armored Core series, though Takeuchi denied that this is part of any of their plans. What would you like from the next Armored Core game? Do any major changes need to be made to the aesthetics of the franchise? The gameplay experiences of these games changed often between games, maintaining a sense of freshness and expressing a great deal of thought in combat design. So why isn't the Armored Core series more popular than it is? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, thanks for watching. And that wraps it up. If you like what we're doing, please consider subscribing to our channel. We upload new videos daily. Also, don't forget to switch on the bell notification icon, that way you don't miss out on any of our videos.